get in there and be part of the in crowd and be cool, and that these things will make you the man, then is it so surprising that our students come to school drunk or have beer for lunch? It really opened his eyes that day. So much so that, unknown to the group, at the end of that presentation, he hopped in his car and he went to Glenannis. He went to Glenannis and he went to the liquor store that Sam was talking about. And he went inside, he looked around, and he spoke to the owner. That evening, he had a community forum in Three Kings. And we went there too, because by this time we were groupies following him around everywhere. But he stood up, he addressed the crowd, and he said, the liquor laws need to change because of what I saw in Glenannis today. When he said that, to our surprise, we knew we had not wasted our time with that man. So what else could a group possibly do? A couple of weeks ago, they hosted the Labour Party caucus at a community forum here at Ruaportaka Marae. And here are some of our locals. It's Matua Jim, our kaumatua. What happened was, at the end of last year, Leanne Dalzell came to Ruaportaka Marae in support of her colleague, Carol Beaumont, sort of doing a bit of a labour in the community kind of tour. And the GI Drug and Alcohol group was there. And they knew that Leanne Dalzell was the Minister of Justice at the time that kicked off the reform in the first place. And so the community stood up and said, thank you for coming to address what is a community caucus. Is there a possibility that the community can address the Labour caucus? Oh yes, she said, absolutely. And every other Labour card carrying member in the room. So, they kept their promise, and they came a couple of weeks ago, and we had spokesperson for youth, the spokesperson for health, specifically drugs and alcohol, our local MP there as well. And it was a really good experience. They got taken on a tour by Barbara Takare, who's been a social worker in the area for 30 plus years. She knows all the hotspots. And Ba'a, who works with young offenders with the police. And they took them to, where else? Church Laka, next to the high school that Sam had told Sir Jeffrey Palmer about. And while they were out on their tour, the community stayed behind and they had a conversation. They had a conversation about what would our community look like if we had greater restrictions around advertising. What would our community look like if we had decreased accessibility through increased pricing? What would the lives of our future young people look like if the drinking age was raised to 20? And so the conversation was aspirational. It was future focused. And of course, they told us, they said, we would be a community that is greater connected. Not saying that they're not, but they would be more connected. They would have greater educational outcomes. They would be a healthier community. They would be a safer community. Who doesn't want that? So when the politicians came back, we fed that back to them. And then we moved the discussion on to, well, what kind of leadership is required to bring this future about? What kind of leadership is required to make these sorts of changes? And so we got the typical answers. Oh, we need brave leadership. Oh, we need to be courageous. We need to be audacious. And what it ended up being agreed to is what we actually need is collaborative leadership. We need leaders in Wellington and leaders at the community working together towards this outcome, echoing what they had said back at the Justice Select Committee last year. We need leaders in Wellington between parties working together. We need leaders in communities working together across communities, all saying the same thing, all saying it at the same time. A few solid outcomes from that particular forum. They made the commitment to return as an expression of that collaborative leadership, and they indicated a want for a cross-party forum as an expression of that political collaborative leadership. That was a great day. So some more outcomes that came from that. Well, Friday last week, front page of the local paper, we have Senior Sergeant Porter on the front page, who was at the forum as well. And so he's quoted in here as supporting the group, and the group has some quotes in there too about the opinions about the liquor reform. But one of the one of the things that we could see in this article was that Graham Porter had used a specific example that was from that forum, 24 RTVs for $24, and he reiterates it in this article. So what that shows us is that the group has given people real, solid examples that they can leave with and continue on with this discussion. Another outcome, which almost knocked me off my chair when I saw it, was the Backbenchers program on TVNZ7. If you're unfamiliar with the program, what they do is they take some backbench MPs once a week, stick them on a panel and talk about what's hot. And if I can figure out, now before you see the clip, what you need to keep in mind is the process that happened on the day at the forum. The fact that Graham Porter is using real examples that were given at the forum. And further on in that article, it talks about shifting the argument from what do I lose out on as an individual to what do we have to gain as a country, which was the conversation we were having. You know, what would our community look like if we did this, if we did that? So I want you to have a listen and see how this got through to our MPs.
Increasing the price of a dry game when people can't necessarily, I think it's got to come with the money there. What a price increase affect you personally?
I mean, nobody wants it in terms of moderate drinkers, people that drink to the excess, but the reality is, again, the evidence shows that it does make a difference in terms of the amount that people consume. And I mean, recently I was out in Glen Innes with people that are working in the drug and alcohol services, and they took us on a tour and they showed us the bottle stores where kids were stopping because a can of Woodstock was cheaper than a can of Coke next door. So I mean, we have a collective responsibility. Maybe it'll affect us personally, and maybe we're not the ones that are drinking to the excess, but if it's better for our society in general, then that's something that we really need to look at seriously.
It's an issue of enforcement. Where's the enforcement? We've got an area that's not enforced.
Well,
That's
speaking
the
of
issue.
enforcement,
Almost word for word what the community said in that forum. And here was Carmel Cepoloni, who was there that day, giving the community airtime, really. So, if that's what we can do with the Labour Party, what's next on the agenda? So next week on Friday is the National Party Caucus Community Forum. Blank faces, still yet to confirm who exactly will be there. Chester Burrows has been hooking this up through on the national side. We do know that these numbers are accurate. It will be between 10 and 20 national MPs. And we'll go through that process again. We'll take them on a tour. We'll have those conversations. And I don't know, maybe in a week or 2 weeks later, we'll start seeing them saying the sorts of things that Carmel is saying. So where to from here? Well, there's this notion of a cross-party community forum. It's very exciting. When the bill reaches its first reading, it will go to select committee most likely after that. So there's another opportunity there to take community voice and put it in the hands of the lawmakers. And then, the GI Drug and Alcohol group doesn't have to be the only one making submissions. So there's an opportunity there for the group to have a coordinated approach to community submissions and in enabling other groups in the community to be saying what they want to say. The end.